Hello, Mallards. It's still Thursday, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to save this and upload it tomorrow on Friday because today's video is all about Our Flag Means Death, which I watched at 3 a.m. And we'll save Friday's video to be about Loki Season 2, Episode 2, which I watched at like 10 p.m. I'm just going to give you my unashamed, unhinged thoughts, which I know I'm not doing for Our Flag Means Death, but that's because my thoughts for this whole hour-long episode of Loki are this long. And my thoughts for a half-hour episode of Our Flag Means Death is like 3 times that length because I'm just essentially like typing something about every little second that happens because I'm so overwhelmed and excited. And with Loki, I'm a little more tempered and a little more analytical and a little less unhinged. So I feel like we can make a nice video about it. And for Our Flag Means Death, I'm going to stick with me reacting like a crazy person. And also just talking about how much I love it. So, without any further ado, Loki, Season 2, Episode 2. I did absolutely watch the recap. Mostly because I wanted to see more Obi, because he's my favorite. And then in the recap, they put the Sylvie kiss, and I didn't want to see that. I hated it, and now I'm upset again. But we jumped right into what I guess is X5's real life. Like, what I got confused about is I knew they were all pulled from the sacred timeline, so they all like had lives on the sacred timeline. And so I guess they're not really variants. I think that's something that confused me the first season. So they're not really variants. They actually got pulled out of those lives at some point. So technically there was like a hole for him to fill. So he went back and filled that, and he seemed to be really into it. And then I wrote, I do feel like I'm a little lost about what is happening. And I maintain that. Like, they had memories, so they were on the timeline, and then they got pulled out of it, I guess. But I don't think that they were variants. I think that they're really just kidnapped from the sacred timeline. That's sort of where I'm at right now. And it's been a while since I watched Season 1, and I ended it so upset that, like, maybe I've just forgotten. My next note just says, ooh, Loki magic. I really didn't realize how much I missed Loki magic, but I really did. Like, I had to survive that whole first episode without any cool Loki magic, and I got so much this episode, and I was into it. I love it when Loki just gets to be Loki. Like, when he full-on gets to be the god of mischief and just cause trouble and be a little bit dark and a little bit questionable and a whole lot of fun. I liked that he conjured up a whole street gang. That was a kick. And the shadows, like, Mobius was like, I think these are kind of overkill. And I was like, no, they are not. Those shadows are brilliant, and I really love them. And Loki and I agreed about that. Sometimes I really like Loki. However, I really love Obi. I really liked them coming in and being like, Obi, can you look at this? And he goes, oh yeah, I can get into that. Do you think it's higher priority than preventing a temporal meltdown? And then we're like, oh, no. But I get the feeling from like the way he asked the question that if they'd said yes, he would have dropped the temporal meltdown to like look at this device instead. To like hack into the tempad, which is fascinating. I don't know. Obi's a really interesting character, and I just love that he might have done that. And what a world we would be in if they'd been like, yeah, I don't care about the temporal meltdown, fix this problem. I also really love that he wrote the manual and has a manual for everything, and just handed that over. I'm sure that I wrote, bet Mobius and Loki will love that. And I was correct. They did not understand what they were doing, and they really, really struggled. But luckily, Casey was there to save them. We'll get to that in a minute. My next note says, of course Miss Minutes is working with Renslayer. I already explained to you that Miss Minutes is the real villain. I don't know why you guys aren't caught up on that. Forget any of the Kangs, actually. None of the Kangs matter. It's all about Miss Minutes being evil. I'm also honestly confused about why they were mad at Brad. Like, because they were talking about lives on the timeline and like did seem like people should like be able to go back to them, like were upset that they'd been stolen out of their lives on the timeline. So for the first part of that interrogation, I was like, I'm kind of on Brad's side here. Like, I get that he ran off supposedly to look for Sylvia, and now they like really want to find Sylvia and whatever, so they like need to know where he went. But it seemed to me that he just like decided to join his spot on the sacred timeline, and I thought that that's what they wanted people to do, or like that's what B-15 wanted to do, but I guess they don't, because they instead like want to prevent, I don't know, the destruction of time or whatever, which like is noble and stuff, but like, I don't know, I feel like if somebody wants to live their life on the sacred timeline, you should let them. So I definitely was a little lost with that and confused. And Brad, because we honor chosen names in this house, and if he wants to be Brad, then he's no longer X5, and that's good. Was really hitting Loki in the gut, but Loki took it really well, which I thought should make Brad worried, like very worried, because a calm Loki is actually a bad thing. Natasha would tell you that. And I also, though, agree that Loki is way too obsessed with Sylvie. Like, he really, really has a problem with that. And also, Brad was way better at interrogation than I had anticipated. Maybe he's been taking lessons from Natasha. I mean, he made Mobius lose his cool, which I was impressed by. I actually liked the whole interrogation bit with Brad. I thought that Brad was fun. I liked how cheeky he was. It was interesting because it's not what I'd really expected from his character. Like, I didn't expect the intelligence level. I did expect the stubbornness. And so I thought that that was really enjoyable. And I liked the back and forth in the interrogation room all the time. I really loved Mobius losing his cool and just like upset and running down the hallway and Loki chasing him and being like, are you okay? Do we need to check in? Like, is everything all right? And then I wrote, oh no, am I gonna look up this ship on AO3 now? Because maybe I'm gonna look up this ship on AO3 now. Like, when Mobius is like, where are we? And Loki's like, I was following you. And he's like, I was following you. And Loki was like, you were in front of me. And then he goes, it's okay, let's just get some pie. And then he gets some pie, and I was like, ugh. Okay, fine, they were kind of adorable. Also, not Loki equating grabbing and shaking Brad to literally taking the whole city of New York hostage and raining down aliens on them. Like, him just being like, oh yeah, we all do silly things. What an egomaniac. I still love him. But that really did crack me up. He's like, oh yeah, some of us, you know, we grab the guy we're interrogating and shake him a little bit. And some of us, we enslave an entire city using the Mind Stone and throw Tony Stark off a building. And those, the same thing. I see no difference between these two pictures. Absolutely ridiculous. But I did love an encouraging conversation over pie. My next note is, why is this so much louder? And that is because when Obi, like, walked into the loom, the sound was so much louder than the quiet conversation that Mobius and Loki had just been having. And I was very frustrated with that because I'm trying to watch in the living room while my roommates are sleeping. So I, like, turned the volume up so I could hear Loki and Mobius talking. And then it was so loud when they got in the temporal loom. And balance your sound, guys. Like, I just don't understand why that needs to be so much. Like, I get that some things are so much louder, but then I think your conversation should be at a higher level. It's just a personal opinion, and it really only grows from the fact that I was trying to be, like, semi-quiet. And then my next note is, this all seems like a ploy. There's no way Mobius is locked out of a cell. And like, I thought that Brad was pretty smart. I'd given him a lot of kudos. He's clearly very good at reading people for the most part, but he's terrible at like base intelligence. Because how did he not realize that a jail cell doesn't lock from the inside? That's not how it works. And that also, if Loki had somehow locked it, he would be able to unlock it. Like, he was between Loki and the door. I don't know. Absolutely ridiculous. Can't believe he fell for that. But I was enjoying it. I really liked the goof that they were doing, and Mobius pretending to be upset and being like, Loki, you're not a villain. And turning all of Brad's words against him. Like, everything that he said about Loki being a villain and terrible and doing awful things. And Loki was like, I don't know if you know, but I'm a villain. And I've done terrible and awful things. And I'm about to do terrible and awful things. I don't know why I made that really sexy. I take it back. Like, it was meant to be threatening, but I realized that I was making that sound kind of suggestive. Sorry. Anyway, I really liked that he was using Brad's words against him. And then they found Sylvie, which is good for them, I guess. They ran off to find her. And then I got the best moment of this whole episode, which is Casey meeting Obi and just fangirling. Being like, oh my God, you wrote the TVA handbook? Can I have your autograph? Will you sign this for me? And like, their excitement level, absolutely peak. And I love that Obi immediately dropped his, oh my God, we're all gonna die and we're all doomed, to be like, yes, I absolutely will sign your handbook. So good. So good. I'm already an Obi fan, and I'm glad that Casey stands with me. Like, we're tight. The president, obviously Casey is the president and vice president of the Obi fan club. That's us. But apparently everybody's gonna die because you can't open the blast doors because it takes He Who Remains to do that. But luckily for them, there are like a billion Kangs out there, so probably one of them can open it. My next note says, I'm sorry, Sylvia is working at McDonald's? Love that for her, honestly. I feel like a normal life is kind of what she wanted. And it doesn't get more normal than working for McDonald's in the 1980s. I feel like that's pretty basic. I also really liked Loki coming over and being like, we need to talk. And she's like, I have a break in 5. And they're walking outside. And Sylvie says, it's a short break, so talk fast. Loki. So, I know you didn't want to see me. Yeah, like, I know you didn't want me to be here, and like, you don't want to talk to me. But there's some stuff going on. It's complicated. But like, so I need your help. And yeah, so could you like help me? I sort of traveled to the future and I was like, oh my God. She said her break was short, sir. Get to the point. Don't be so awkward. It was really funny though. Like, I really loved that it just took him an age to say anything on her very short break. But to her credit, she did sit there and listen. But I agree with Brad. It's weird. It's weird that they're into each other. Their whole relationship is weird. It's weird. I was a little bit on Team Brad for a large part of this episode. I also really liked Loki going to Sylvia and be like, you're just going to give everyone free will and walk away? And Sylvia was like, yeah, that's how it works. It's free will. If I stayed and tried to manage it, that defeats the point. And she didn't say that, but I'm saying it for her because she's right. You give people free will and you let them use it. That makes sense to me. And then we get to the point where everybody catches up with what I was pretty sure was happening last episode, when all of Dox's soldiers walked into the doors, the time doors, with a whole bunch of stuff, and they were like, that seems like an awful lot of stuff to just be chasing Sylvie. And I was like, right, because they're just gonna blow up all of the timelines and destroy all the branches. And everybody else was like, well, they probably need that. You know, Sylvie's really dangerous. We're just gonna continue on with our lives until we get to the point now where Brad's basically spilling the beans that yes, in fact, they are going to prune all of the branches off the sacred timeline. And then they do it. And everybody else was surprised. But I wasn't. I knew that was coming. Like, I don't know how they didn't. And a bunch of timelines are gone now. And the thing is, everyone was like, thousands of lives are lost and we're really sad. And I do get it. It is sad. Sad on a big scale where it's hard for it to like be actually sad. Like, it's definitely sad. But also, y'all spent literally like time immemorial doing this. Like, you've been doing it for a really, really, really long time. And I get that before you didn't think that they were lives, and now you know they're lives, and that kind of changes the perspective. But I felt like we were a lot more devastated about this in comparison to like a realization that you'd been doing it forever. And also, you've been doing it forever and more branches just keep forming. So like, will those people come back? Nah, but there'll be more multiverses. You know, it's infinite. And who knows? In a multiverse where anything is possible, technically every timeline could repeat because anything is possible. So maybe you'll get that exact branch again. I don't know. I do wonder, however, if that made a temporal meltdown less likely. Probably not, but it might have. I guess we'll find out next episode. I did enjoy that Sylvie's McDonald's did survive the pruning of every branch, because of course it did. She needs a place to go back to, and that place is on the hood of her truck outside of a McDonald's in the 1980s. Overall, it was a fun episode. I really did like Loki back in his element with the magic. I'm looking forward to more of that. I enjoyed the camaraderie between Loki and Mobius a lot. I really liked Casey and Obi. I didn't mind most of what Sylvie did. I liked that she came and fought against Dox, like, despite her insistence that she didn't want a part in anything. She stepped in immediately to like help them stop all the timelines from being pruned. They weren't very successful, but she did try. And then I liked that she was like, you guys suck at this, and I don't want any part of it because the TVA should just be destroyed, and then walked away. But I also spent a fair amount of this episode being very confused. And I shouldn't be. I've watched all of it. So if I was clearly confused because I wasn't paying attention to something, please let me know in the comments what I missed. If you were also confused, let me know that, and I will see you tomorrow.